when I trained, I had a very traditional psychiatric nurse training back in the early 1990s. And you can sum my training up in 3 sentences, really. And those 3 sentences are these. First of all, the doctor is always right. Secondly, if you disagree with the doctor, don't worry, we will medicate you until you agree. And thirdly, if we can't get you to agree, we will label you as an uncooperative or personality disordered patient, and we will exclude you from our service. Now, I know that might sound trite, but I'm absolutely sincere. That was the unspoken message that ran through my training like the words in a stick of rock. But can I ask, have any of you come across that approach to people in mental health services before? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've seen that. Okay, what do you make of it?
Shocking.
It's not so good, is it? I'll tell you what I think. I think it's arrogant, because I don't think anybody's always right. And I don't care whether you're a doctor, a nurse, a social worker, an OT, support worker, doesn't matter. Nobody's always right.
We used to excuse them because back then, you know, that's what people did. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's right, but we've moved on a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still no excuse.
Well, I don't know. I think people are, we're all products of our time. Mm-hmm. You know, and there are things we do in 2012 that in 2040 people will look back and judge us really critically. They will if we've got our bit right, because if we do our bit right, people will do better the next generation on. So actually we're part of a process of improvement, but the problem with that is the people who come after us will be very critical of what we do. And that wouldn't be fair, and nor is it fair, I think you're right, nor is it fair to criticise people in, say, the 80s for doing what they did, because we wouldn't be doing anything any better without them pioneering what we did. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, it's right, we're all a product of our time, but we have moved on, and we are a bit better than that. And now I think where we're going in services is a realisation that people are people, and they have a right to be who they are, they have a right to disagree with us. And rather than us telling people what's good for them, we tend to work now as a sort of a collaborative partnership. Right then, I'm going to give you all a questionnaire to fill in about all the stuff we haven't talked about yet. The trick is for everybody in your group to agree on your answers, because that'll get you thinking, get you talking. If you're talking, you're thinking, and that's the point. So, with that in mind, and please remember you're going for agreement, because that's what really makes the value of this particular exercise. Have a look at them. So that's what all trainers do, you know. I'm just more honest about it. Yeah, I'm going to mess with your heads. You can divide the way that people learn into 2 broad categories. There's lots more than that, but if we keep it simple, there's just 2. There are top-down learners and bottom-up learners. Top-down learners, they like to get a broad overview of the subject first and then fill in the details. So you start with the top, you start with the overview. Bottom-up learners like to get lots and lots of bits of information as if it were pieces of a jigsaw. We get all of them throughout the day and then we stick it together at the end. And there are some groups where I'll do that, but not with people who work in social care, because as a rule, just like myself, because you know I work in social care too, most of us that do the frontline work seem to be top-down learners. So if it was a jigsaw, I'm assuming you people would like to see the picture on the box before you start trying to fit it together. So what I'd like to do with this questionnaire is we'll go through it as a group, and that will give you the picture on the box. And then we'll spend the rest of the day filling in the pieces. So by the end of it, you've got something that actually hangs together. So with that in mind, we did it in 3 groups, as we always do, 3 or 4 groups, in this case it was 3, because that's easier than everybody answering questions, but it's not a competition. So, let's see which group won. Right, first question. Mental illnesses are more difficult to cure than physical illnesses, survey said.
False.
False.
True and false.
True. Did you have a majority view?
True and false, huh?
False.
True and false.
True and false.
That was it. Both.
Okay. There's a what we call an additional question for this group. Can you spell pop out? Okay, right. Sheila's group, you said false. You're absolutely right, it's false. Put it another way, would you like to have a mild anxiety disorder which will sort with 6 to 12 weeks of CBT or terminal cancer? Which would you prefer? Terminal cancer? I think you might be on your own there, I'll leave it further. You get me point. It's not about whether it's a physical disorder or a mental disorder. There are some things in both camps that are quite easy to treat, and there are some things in both camps that are really difficult to treat, and there are some things that we can treat but not cure in both camps. So it's not about whether it's a mental illness or a physical illness. It's just about what that illness is, and crucially, how much we know about treating it in 2012. And there are some mental disorders that in 2012 we know a huge amount about treating. And there are others that we're learning a lot. You know, we're learning all the time. So the reason that's there is because there is this myth, and it's the thing that you get just in popular culture. There is this assumption, if you've got a mental disorder, that's it, that's you for life, you can't do anything about it. And we're all supposed to be scared of you as well. People who hear voices are mentally ill.
False.
Okay, everybody wins with that because depending on who you look at, some people who hear voices are very definitely mentally ill, but others are not. Just as a quick question, the best guess we have, because we don't know for sure, but we've got some fairly decent statistics on this. What percentage of the population in Western Europe today have psychotic experiences and do not and never have needed any help from mental health services?
60%.
60? Not quite that. I mean, I'm not talking about the odd thing people that most of us get when we go into sleep and waking up. People who hear voices, for example, on a regular basis.
20%.
You're close. It's about 15-ish, as far as we can tell. What percentage of people in our society hear voices and do have a problem?
40.
No, it's significantly less than that. Something like that. Yeah. Again, the statistics aren't really brilliant because finding out who does and doesn't have a problem is tough because a lot of people won't tell you because they're frightened that you'll think they're an axe-wielding murderer. But what we can say with reasonable certainty is the majority of voice hearers don't need any help with it at all because they've got a way to deal with it. We'll talk a bit more about that as we go through it and how people deal with their experiences so they don't have a problem. So everybody wins with that one because depending on who you look at, because you're quite right, there are some people who hear voices who are in a terrible state, and it would be wrong to ignore that. That would do them great injustice. Anxiety is good for us.
True.
True, true. You're all saying true? Absolutely. Go on, can somebody tell me why? I agree with you, but can you tell me why?
Gets your adrenaline going and
Caution.
It's our coping mechanism.
Yeah, absolutely. It's coping, it's caution, gets your adrenaline going, it's what makes you do stuff. I like to think of anxiety as a call to action. Wonderful. Everybody wins with that one. Depression is a normal human experience.
True.
We all saying true? Yeah, I'll go with that. Depending on how you define normal. You put false in, yeah? Alright, everybody wins either way with this one. We can say that it's normal because so many people get it that it would be hard to say it wasn't normal. But we can also say that it's abnormal because it's not the ideal. And there are two ways people use normal as a word. The only point I want to make is that it's dead common and it's not the end of the world and it's treatable. And even if it's not treated, people get over depression. They just, it's a rockier road without treatment. Alcohol causes depression.
I didn't take anything.
Okay.
I didn't take anything.
All right. Can I have a quick show of hands? How many people say false? How many people say true? I thought you disagreed and not ticked anything. So you wanted to prove it.
I wanted to put true, but everybody's opinion is different.
All right. How many people couldn't make their mind up?
How come you said I picked true and false?
Yeah, okay, I can live with that. I mean, you've noticed everybody keeps winning whatever you've put because they are deliberately that way. One of the reasons for that is because if there was an obvious answer to any of these questions, you would have nothing to talk about. The exercise wouldn't work. So, you know, like I say, I'm messing with your heads. But, yeah. What we do know about alcohol is that it is a chemical that depresses the central nervous system. And it probably does so through the actions of a chemical called serotonin and a couple of other things as well. That is a feature of depression, is the reduction of serotonin. But we also know lots of people who can drink like a fish for their entire lives, and they're always bright as a button and really happy and really cheery. But then we also know people like, I think you quoted somebody, Tony. You were
I
talking
have a
about
friend
somebody.
who, when she goes for a night out next day, she's really quite weepy.
Yes, miserable as
Depressed.
sin.
No, she's really quite depressed after drinking.
Okay, alright.
You know, sometimes like, I'm not, well, she usually say, I'm not going to drink again. It just makes me miserable, but she'll
Yeah.
go out and do it again.
Then she does it again. Yeah. Of course, we all make the same mistake over and over again. Everybody does, don't they? The difference, I think, I'm going to talk to you about a thing called the stress and vulnerability model that emphasises this. The difference isn't to do with the nature of alcohol so much as with how vulnerable different people are to it. Some people can take a lot and some people can't. If you're vulnerable to alcohol, it will depress you. If you're not vulnerable to the effects of alcohol, or not as vulnerable, it may not depress you, or maybe you'll just need to drink an awful lot more than somebody else. Theoretically, everybody would get depressed if they drank enough alcohol.
I'll tell her that. She'll be pleased if I tell her that.
Well, yeah.
She's not drinking enough.
She's not drinking enough, yeah. That's not what I want you to take away from this training day. Deliberate self-harm is about attention seeking.
False.
You're all saying false?
Yes.
Great, I don't have to kick anybody. You're bigger than me, I won't kick you anyway. Which of these then are symptoms of depression? I'll just go through them and tell me what you think. So sleeplessness.
Yes.
You're all saying yes?
Yes.
Okay. Dietary disturbance.
Yes.
Delusions.
Enthusiasm.
Yeah, could be, absolutely. We have a thing called psychotic depression, which can be very delusional. History of childhood abuse.
Yes.
Thank you. It's not a symptom. But I think everybody sort of said that, so everybody wins. It's a really important point, that. Just because something happened to you in the past does not mean that the outcome is inevitable. Put that another way, people get over stuff. Panic attacks. Really interested in this one. Technically, theoretically, it shouldn't be, because anxiety, we'll talk about this in more detail, but anxiety is about arousal. It's when you get really excited and tense. And depression is the opposite, it's de-arousal. When you get really slow and lethargic. So they should be absolutely opposite ends of the spectrum, and never the two should meet. And then you get a thing called agitated depression, which has got bits of both in it.
I was at the psychiatrist yesterday, and she said that she has got she's gone into like an arousal, and it reaches a peak, you know, and this is where all the behaviour things come out. And she's got an antidepressant.
Yeah.
So surely that's the opposite then?
Well, I'm not going to say that, because any drug that people take does more than one thing. So my guess is it will be either what we call an SSRI or an SSNRI. And they will work on particular neurotransmitters that are different from other antidepressants. And the chances are that she's on that not because of the antidepressant function, but because of something else. Just like aspirin will take away a headache, but it will also act as an anticoagulant. So it does more than one thing. Antidepressants do more than one thing too. So again, I'm not going to criticise.
But that's what she's on it for, seemingly for depression as such.
Okay, I'm still not going to criticise the care of somebody I've never met by a doctor I've never spoken to, because that would be silly. we're only doing an overview at the moment. We will look at this stuff in more detail. But one of the things that we've learned over the last 100 years in mental health and in psychiatry is that jumping to conclusions is almost always the wrong thing to do. Overactive or manic behaviour?
Can be.
No, it can never be. They really are opposite ends of the spectrum. If you're you can have bipolar affective disorder, which is manic depression, but all that means is if that's mood, if that's sort of middling mood, most of us we hover around the middle like that, and we get a bit happy and we get a bit sad, but that's as far as we go. Then you have a few more here. You've got very sad. Then you've got what we call subclinical depression. I'll talk about that later, so you know what that means. Then we have depression, and then we have really profound depression. Here we have excited, going up the scale. And then we have a thing called hypomanic, that's below manic. And then we have manic, and then we have hypermanic, which is very, very manic. People with bipolar disorder go from one pole, one extreme to the other. So they do that. But it's not possible to be both at the same time. That's your depressive phase, that's your manic phase. So mania is not a symptom of depression, it can't be. That makes sense? Alright, cool. Jolly good. I like this. Go on, I love this one. Oh, I did, didn't I? There we go. And you got it right as well. And I don't know whether you did or not, but if I don't give you one, everybody's even again. So there you go, you see. It's like them game shows on telly where nobody cares about the score at all. Alright, mental disorder is caused by chemical imbalance. Okay. Traumatic experience.
Yes.
Discrimination. So you're saying no? You're saying yes? Okay, cookie. So you get 2, 3. You get 1, 2, and you get 1, 2, 3. What we've got there are evidence of the medical model, the psychological model, and the social model. They're all ways to explain mental disorder. And actually there's a lot to be said for each of them. We're going to pull them together later and talk about the stress and vulnerability model, which stops us having to flip from one explanation to another because it just covers them all. It's a really nice way to think about mental health and mental disorder. Anyway, psychotic means, what did you get?
You're not in control of how you're feeling.
You're not in control of how you're feeling, okay? This group?
Mental breakdown.
Mental breakdown?
Not in a good place.
Not in a good place. So you're all equally vague then.
I should have said to maybe more risk to yourself or maybe to the public.
You could be, but you can be in lots of ways, and lots of psychotic people aren't at risk, either to themselves or to others.
Sounds so severe.
That's a beautiful thing.
That's the Daily Mail for you.
Right.
Yeah, if somebody look at the Anders Breivik, I couldn't possibly comment. Well, I mean, if you look at the way the tabloids treated Anders Breivik, the guy in Norway who shot all them kids and let the bomb off in the middle of Oslo, and the amount of journalists who are insisting that he's mentally ill simply because he's done something we don't like. Now I can understand that, because it's hard to get your head around why somebody would go around and shoot a load of kids on a camping, like a big, like a Boy Scout jamboree type thing, really, a Boy and Girl Scout.
See, just like 77 people in a day, like this. It's pretty nifty stuff.
Oh, why?
It's mentally not ready.
Especially when you're saying that.
No, but he's saying it's a political thing.
But he's saying he was in self-defence, it's something like that. It's just evil.
Oh.
He said he didn't want his country to become Bolton or something. A comment in relation to that.
Then sometimes the press do things just to make the public feel better.
Well,
If he's done that because he's got a mental health disorder or whatever, then he's done it because of that. He's not done it just because he wanted to. So it makes you feel better to think that he's done it because of that.
right. If we accept that he is sane, and I personally think that he is, I think he's very misguided, but that's my ideology when mental disorder. If we accept that he's sane, we need to accept that he's just like us. And that's not a nice thing. But if you can make him the other, and you can say, no, he did that, therefore he must have had, That's easier, that's comfortable. The tabloids, to go back to what we said, the tabloids have a job to do, which is to sell papers. So they sell stories that make people feel good or feel comfortable, or satisfy that curiosity stuff. Making Anders Breivik mad is a really good way to get more people to buy their papers, but it's not the reality. Insanity is different from doing that sort of catastrophic stuff. But psychosis, which is what we're really saying, what psychotic means is if one or more of three types of symptoms, and these are hallucinations. You can write it down if you like, but you're going to get it all on handouts later. So hallucinations. Well, why not? You know, no point making words. Hallucinations, which is anything that you experience in your five senses. So it could be what you see, what you hear, what you touch, what you taste, what you smell. But other people don't share that experience. So one of the psychotic symptoms is hallucinations. Another one is a delusion, and the textbook view of that is a fixed, false belief, not amenable to reason. Put it another way, you've got something that you believe it really strongly, and nobody can talk you out of it. And then the third one, this is the not what you think, but how you think. It's called a thought disorder, and it's to do with the process of thinking. So, for example, some people, when they're sorting out their thoughts in their head and trying to turn it into words to speak, it all gets jumbled up. So you get all the right words. It's like Les Dawson playing the piano. You get all the right words, not necessarily in the right order. That's called word salad. It's a thought disorder. Does that make sense? Right, we're going to do them in more detail. We're only doing overview, but that is that's the definition of psychosis. It's one or more of hallucinations, delusions, and thought disorders. It's not axe-wielding murder. All right? Any questions, comments, or challenges about any of that? No? Well, we're just coming up to the break. There's one thing that I want to make clear to you before we have a break in about 5 minutes. I'm going to start by asking you a question, which is this. Who is the most important member of the mental health care team? Apart from the person, the individual who needs of those who are helping that individual, who's the most important member?
A doctor.
You say the doctor?
I think the person that knows the best.
Right, person that knows them best? No, they're not all equal at all.
A psychiatrist?
No.
No. I was going to say that. I thought about it.
It actually doesn't matter what that person's qualification is. What matters is, you're closest with knows them best, what matters is the person who is there. And there's loads of research that I'm not supposed to like, because I do all sorts of knobby stuff and I've got letters after me and stuff like that. But actually the reality is, if you look at the research, people like me aren't very important in the care team. It's the people who are there most of the time, and usually that means people like you. Don't let people devalue what you do, is the message, because you're the most important members of the team. And one way I like to explain this is to say that, because I do things like I'll do CBT with psychosis and stuff like that, some quite complicated things. My stuff will never work unless that person has a secure, confident, safe enough environment to be able to do the thinking about the stuff I talk to them about. Your stuff will work, so I need you there. Effectively, my stuff won't work without you. Your stuff will work without me. I can speed the job along. I can maybe take someone who would take 3 years to get past the service, and we can take it down to 2. But you'll still get there in 3 if I'm not there, if I'm not around. Your stuff works without me. My stuff won't work without you. I genuinely think the most important person in the care team is the person who's there most of the time, and that's usually the support worker. You okay with that? Now, what we're going to do today is not make you experts, but along the way today, I'm going to keep on talking about the ways that support workers can do their work, so that either you can really be instrumental in helping that person to get well and get beyond the need for your service. I'm also going to talk about the things you can do that trap them there.